The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber towered above Ambassador Elias Drake as he stood alone at the center of the judgment platform. Thousands of alien representatives from across the known universe observed from their elevated seats, some with curiosity, others with obvious contempt. The 7 Supreme Counselors, each representing the founding species of the Galactic Confederacy, loomed on their obsidian thrones. Supreme Counselor Vextal rose, his iridescent scales catching the light as he addressed the chamber. Humanity stands accused of unsanctioned military action, resulting in the extinction of the Dravari Collective. 2 billion sentient beings gone. His voice reverberated through the chamber. How do you plead, Ambassador Drake? A holographic display activated behind Drake, showing the destruction of what appeared to be an entire planetary system. The chamber filled with gasps and murmurs. Drake didn't flinch. Instead, he activated his own holographic interface with a subtle hand gesture. Before I answer, I request permission to present evidence that has been conveniently omitted from these proceedings. Denied, Vextal hissed. The evidence phase has concluded. Drake's eyes narrowed as he looked up at the council. Then I stand in contempt of these proceedings. The chamber erupted in shocked outrage. Vextal pounded his ceremonial staff. You dare. I dare because this isn't a trial. It's a charade, Drake interrupted. You've already decided our fate. But what you fail to understand about humans is this. He stepped forward, his voice suddenly amplified across the chamber. We survived the attempted genocide of our species. We didn't come here to be judged. We came to put you on notice. From Drake's palm projected a new hologram, a recording that caused even Vextal to freeze mid-protest. The footage showed Dravari warships systematically bombarding Earth colonies, vaporizing millions of civilians. The recording bore the official seal of the Council's own monitoring authority, evidence that was mysteriously lost from your records, Drake said coldly. The Dravari didn't face extinction because of unprovoked human aggression. They faced it because they tried to exterminate us first. And the Council knew. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the full impact of the revelation settled. Drake's final words echoed ominously. Humanity came seeking justice. Since we found none here today, let me be clear about what happens next. No more mercy. Counselor Ratha, a tall being with skin like polished silver, rose from her seat. These accusations are serious, Ambassador, but they change nothing. The complete extinction of another species was not our intention, Drake cut in. We asked for their surrender 17 times during the conflict. They refused, choosing instead to trigger their own extinction rather than face justice. Their choice, not ours. As Drake spoke, a silent communication passed between him and Captain Lyra Vance aboard the Earth Defense Force flagship, Retribution, waiting beyond Council space. Through his neural implant, he could sense her tension. The fleet is in position, her voice whispered in his mind. Extraction team standing by. Hold, he subvocalized, the word transmitted directly to her. Not yet, Vextal slammed his staff again. This council will now deliberate. The human representative will be escorted to a holding chamber. Drake smiled thinly. I think not. 4 guards approached the platform, each carrying weapons designed specifically to incapacitate humans, a clear violation of diplomatic protocols. Drake didn't move. Counselors, representatives, Drake addressed the chamber. Humanity has extended every courtesy to this council. We believed in its purpose, a forum where all spacefaring species could resolve conflicts peacefully. We were wrong, his gaze swept the chamber. While I've been standing here, my associates have been accessing your sealed archives. We now have proof that 3 council races, including the Dravari, planned Earth's destruction years before we even developed faster-than-light travel. Pandemonium broke out in the chamber. Several representatives from smaller worlds stood, demanding to see this evidence. Others called for Drake's immediate arrest. Why? Asked a representative from a neutral world. Why target humans? Because they feared what we might become, Drake answered. Our adaptability, our resilience, our potential. Vextal hissed a command and the guards rushed forward. Drake pressed a small device on his wrist. Suddenly, the chamber's lights flickered, and all communications went dead. When the emergency systems engaged 30 seconds later, Drake was gone. From the Retribution's bridge, Captain Vance watched Drake emerge from the teleportation chamber. Cutting it close, Ambassador. Had to give them their chance, Drake said grimly. Order the fleet to decloak. Across Council space, 200 human warships suddenly appeared, having been hidden by technology the Council believed impossible. Each vessel positioned near critical infrastructure, defense platforms, jump gates, communication hubs. On every Council world, the same message appeared on all communication channels. Drake's face calm but resolute. For decades, we sought peaceful relations. When that failed, we asked only for justice. Now, we're done asking. The Retribution's engines flared as it accelerated away from Council space, followed by the rest of the human fleet, a clear demonstration that they could have attacked but chose not to. Not yet. They'll come after us with everything they have, Vance said. Joining Drake at the viewport. Let them try, Drake replied, watching the stars stretch into streaks as they jumped to faster than light. They've never faced anything like humanity before. Back in the Council chamber, the representatives of 1,000 worlds argued furiously. Some demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others called for investigation of Drake's claims. Amidst the chaos, a junior aide approached Counselor Ratha, discreetly passing her a data crystal. This was found in the archives, Counselor. The human was telling the truth. Ratha stared at the crystal, then at the empty judgment platform. For the first time in her 300-year life, she felt afraid. In the darkness of space, the human fleet regrouped at their rendezvous point. Drake stood before the assembled captains, his face displayed on screens throughout every ship. Today marks the end of one era and the beginning of another, he said. We tried diplomacy. We tried cooperation. Now we try it their way. His eyes hardened. The Council had their chance for peace. They chose war instead. The captains nodded grimly. Set course for Earth, Drake ordered. We have preparations to make. As the fleet disappeared into the void, the message they left behind continued to play throughout Council space. After the genocide, humanity declared, no more mercy. Dr. Marcus Wells brushed dust from the ancient stone tablet, his heart pounding as he translated the alien script. The ruins on this abandoned world had stood for over 50,000 years, forgotten by the Galactic Council that now hunted humans across the stars. This can't be right, he whispered, the beam of his helmet light illuminating symbols that shouldn't exist. Beside him, Tora crouched low, her 4 eyes constantly scanning the darkness of the underground chamber. Unlike humans, her species could see heat signatures through solid rock. More Council ships entering orbit, she warned, her translator converting clicks and whistles into human speech. We have 20 minutes at most. Wells nodded, capturing images of the tablet with his scanner. Almost done. 3 months had passed since Ambassador Drake's confrontation with the Council. 3 months of running, hiding, and searching for answers. While Earth prepared for war, Wells led a small team of researchers to worlds the Council had declared forbidden, seeking the truth behind humanity's targeting. Look at this. Wells pointed to a section of the tablet. These symbols match records from 7 different extinct civilizations, all wiped out by cleansing operations over the past 100,000 years. Tora moved closer. As of Ashiri, a species the Council had reduced to servitude centuries ago, she had special interest in Wells's discoveries. All by Council order? Yes, and all sharing one characteristic. Wells projected a holographic comparison of DNA sequences, a specific genetic marker, the same one humans carry. A distant explosion rocked the ruins, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Tora's skin shifted to a deeper blue. Fear. They're starting ground bombardment. We need to leave now. Wells packed his equipment and followed Tora through the labyrinth of ancient corridors. His mind raced faster than his feet. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't targeted randomly. They carried something in their very cells that terrified the Council. They emerged from the ruins to see their small ship still intact, hidden beneath camouflage netting. Above, Council destroyers began systematic bombardment of the ruins they'd just fled. They're erasing the evidence, Wells said grimly as they prepared for launch, just like they've done before. Once safely in hyperspace, Wells connected to the secure quantum network linking human resistance cells. Captain Vance's face appeared on the small screen. Tell me you found something worth nearly getting killed for, she said without preamble. More than something, Wells replied, transmitting his findings. The Council has been conducting targeted extinctions for at least 100,000 years. always focusing on species with the same rare genetic sequence humans possess. Vance frowned. What does this sequence do? That's just it, nothing obvious. But according to these records, it's associated with a species the ancients called the precursors, who apparently challenged council dominance eons ago. Tora leaned into view. My people have legends. They speak of beings who could reshape reality with thought alone. The council didn't just defeat them, they erased all evidence they existed, then hunted down any species carrying their genetic legacy. Vance was silent for a moment. You're telling me the council tried to wipe us out because we might be distant relatives of some ancient, powerful species? Precisely. Wells nodded. And there's more. These genetic markers become more expressed under certain conditions, specifically extreme survival pressure. Understanding dawned in Vance's eyes. Like a genocide attempt. The Dravari attack wasn't just an atrocity, Wells said quietly. It was a desperate move to eliminate us before we became something more. Something the council fears. Their conversation was interrupted by proximity alarms. A council hunter-killer ship had somehow tracked them through hyperspace, something supposedly impossible. They're deploying boarding pods, Tora reported, rushing to defensive stations. Wells transmitted the last of his data. Captain, if we don't make it, you will, Vance cut him off. The retribution is 8 minutes from your position. The small research vessel shuddered as the first boarding pod attached to its hull. Wells grabbed the nearest weapon, a council pulse rifle they'd captured weeks earlier. Seal the bridge, he ordered Tora. I'll hold them at Junction 3. Tora hesitated, then nodded. The data must reach Earth. Wells positioned himself at the narrow corridor leading to the engine room. If the council troops reached those engines, they could trigger a core collapse that would destroy the ship and all its precious data. The inner door melted under council cutting tools, and armored figures poured through the breach. Wells fired, dropping the first two, but there were too many. A stun blast caught him in the shoulder, sending him sprawling. A council executor, their elite hunters, stepped forward, weapon trained on Wells's head. The human resistance dies today, it said through its translator. Wells smiled through the pain. Actually, it doesn't. The ship lurched violently as tractor beams locked on. Through the viewport behind the council troops, the massive form of the Retribution appeared, its weapon systems targeting the hunter-killer ship. Captain Vance's voice echoed through all communication channels. Attention council vessel. You have breached sovereign human territory and attacked a civilian research ship. You have 10 seconds to surrender. The executor raised its weapon to execute Wells. It never got the chance. The corridor filled with blinding light as human marines teleported directly into the ship, another technology the council believed impossible. Within minutes, the council boarding party was neutralized, and Wells was helped to his feet by a Marine sergeant. Dr. Wells, Captain Vance says to tell you she's getting tired of saving your ass. Wells managed a pained laugh. Tell her the feeling is mutual. Aboard the Retribution, Wells presented his findings to the ship's command staff and Ambassador Drake, who had arrived via secure transport. These ruins confirm what we've suspected, Wells concluded. The Council has been systematically eliminating species with precursor genetic markers for millennia. The Dravari were their instruments against us, but the order came from higher. Drake studied the ancient tablet images. Can we prove which Council races were involved? 3 for certain, Wells pointed to specific markings. The Elatrians, the Vorex, and the Sentinel Collective. They've been orchestrating these extinctions since before they founded the Council. And the other 4 founding races? Vance asked. Possibly unaware, Tora interjected. My people believe some Council members are as much victims as the rest of us. Puppets to the 3 you named. Drake nodded slowly. This changes our strategy. We don't need to fight the entire Council. Just remove the cancer at its core. There's one more thing, Wells said hesitantly. According to these records, under sufficient stress, the precursor genes can activate. If that's happening to humans now, we might become what the Council fears most, Drake finished. Yes. The question is, what exactly does that mean for us? No one had an answer. But as the Retribution set course for the human fleet's hidden base, one thing became clear. The conflict had evolved beyond retaliation. It had become a struggle for the right to exist, and perhaps to evolve into something beyond the Council's understanding. Humanity's declaration of no more mercy now carried a deeper meaning. It wasn't just about vengeance, it was about survival. General Alexandra Reed stood before the holographic display, her weathered face illuminated by the projection of 1,000 worlds. Representatives from 17 different species crowded the command center of Sanctuary Station, humanity's hidden fortress carved into an asteroid at the edge of uncharted space. The Council believes they hunt us, she addressed the gathered leaders. In reality, we've been positioning our forces throughout their territory for months. A murmur rippled through the alien representatives. Many belong to species long oppressed by the Council, some officially classified as servant races, others simply ignored as inconsequential. None had ever dared open rebellion until humanity extended its hand. Ambassador Drake stepped forward. 6 months ago, humans stood alone against Council aggression. Today we stand with allies. He gestured to the diverse gathering. The Alliance of the Forgotten is no longer just an idea. It's a reality. Kurtal, representative of the insectoid myriad hives, clicked his mandibles nervously. The Council controls millions of warships. Even with human technology, we cannot match their numbers. We don't need to, General Reed replied, adjusting the holographic display. Red markers appeared throughout Council space, hundreds of them positioned at critical junctions. These are human stealth platforms, deployed before the Council's declaration against us. Each contains enough firepower to disable a planetary defense grid. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Such deployment should have been impossible without detection. How? Asked Narvi, ambassador from the aquatic Solarian depths. Instead of answering directly, Reed nodded to a young officer who stepped forward with a small metallic sphere hovering above her palm. This is why the Council feared us, Reed said. Human innovation combined with determination. We call it the Phantom Network. Quantum-entangled stealth technology that renders our ships virtually undetectable. Drake addressed the stunned silence. The Council didn't try to exterminate us because of what we had done. They tried because of what they feared we might become. Tora, now serving as official representative of the Vishiri resistance, spoke up. Dr. Wells's discoveries confirm this. The genetic markers we share with the ancient precursors, they're expressing more strongly in humans with each passing day. What does that mean exactly? Asked a representative from the nomadic traveler clans. Reed and Drake exchanged glances. We're still learning, Drake admitted. But certain humans are developing abilities, enhanced cognitive function, accelerated healing, and in some cases limited technokinetic capabilities. To demonstrate, Reed focused on the holographic display. The projection shifted and zoomed without her touching the controls, responding directly to her thoughts. The Council's attempted genocide awakened something dormant within us, she continued. Something that connects certain humans directly to technology. We believe this is what they feared, the return of precursor abilities. The revelation sent shockwaves through the gathering. Some representatives looked awed, others frightened. We're not here to conquer, Drake assured them. We're here to liberate. The Council has dominated the galaxy for too long, exterminating any species they couldn't control or that carried genetic markers they feared. Reed brought up a new projection, a star system with a small, habitable world. Our first target, Vishiri Prime, Tora's homeworld where millions of her people live in forced labor camps mining resources for Council worlds. Tora's 4 eyes widened. You would liberate my world first? Before striking at the Council directly? This isn't just about humanity anymore, Drake said firmly. This alliance stands together or we don't stand at all. The operation began 3 days later. The Retribution led a fleet of 30 human warships, accompanied by smaller vessels crewed by Alliance members. They emerged from hyperspace directly above Vishiri Prime, bypassing the elaborate defense grid through corridors the stealth platforms had mapped. Captain Vance stood on the bridge, watching as Council orbital stations scrambled to respond. Phantom Network operating at peak efficiency. They still can't get a weapons lock on any of our ships. Commence liberation protocols, Reed ordered from her command station. Precision strikes only. No civilian casualties. Human dropships descended toward the labor camps while specialized teams neutralized the Council overseers. On the planet's surface, Tora led her people in coordinated uprisings. Centuries of oppression fueled their determination. From his position aboard the command vessel, Drake monitored communication channels as news of the attack spread through Council space. The response was exactly as they had hoped. Confusion, followed by panic. Counselor Ratha is requesting an emergency communication, a communications officer reported. Drake nodded. Put her through. The silver-skinned counselor appeared on screen, her normally composed features tight with stress. Ambassador Drake, this attack is an act of war. This is liberation, Counselor, Drake corrected. Something your council should understand, given how often you speak of your mission to liberate worlds from dangerous influences. You cannot win this conflict, Ratha warned. Even now the Grand Fleet assembles. Drake leaned forward. We know, in fact, we're counting on it. Tell your fellow counselors, especially Vextal Morith and Genva, that we've learned the truth. About the precursors. About the extinctions. About everything. For the first time he saw genuine fear in a counselor's eyes. You still have a choice, Ratha. He continued more softly. You and the 3 other counselors not implicated in our findings. Stand with us or fall with those who've orchestrated genocide across millennia. The communication ended abruptly as Ratha cut the connection, but the seed had been planted. Within hours, Vishiri Prime was secured. For the first time in 700 years, the Vishiri people stood free. Similar operations began across a dozen worlds, all species that had suffered under Council rule. As the human fleet regrouped, Dr. Wells arrived with urgent news. We've detected unusual energy signatures from the Council's ancestral world. They're activating something massive, something that's been dormant for thousands of years. General Reed studied the readings. Some kind of weapon? Worse, Wells said grimly. It appears to be a directed quantum distortion device, capable of unraveling the very fabric of space-time across an entire star system. The implications were clear and terrifying. They're aiming it at Earth, Captain Vance said, her voice hollow. Drake's face hardened. They would destroy an entire system rather than allow us to exist. We have perhaps 48 hours before it's fully operational, Wells added. After that, humanity might only exist among the stars, Reed finished. The Alliance representatives watching this exchange understood the gravity of the moment. The Council wasn't just fighting to maintain control. They were willing to commit another genocide. We stand with Earth, Tora declared, her newly liberated people behind her. One by one, the other representatives added their voices. Drake looked out at the assembled Alliance, feeling the weight of history upon them all. Then we make our stand. Not just for humanity, but for every species that deserves freedom. As the combined fleet prepared for what might be its greatest challenge, one question remained unspoken. Could even their new abilities and technology stop a weapon designed to erase worlds from existence? The answer would determine the fate of not just Earth, but the future of the galaxy itself. The quantum distortion weapon loomed against the backdrop of stars, a massive construct of ancient technology orbiting the ancestral homeworld of the Council's founding races. Earth had less than 24 hours before the weapon reached full power. Captain Lyra Vance stared at the tactical display aboard the Retribution. We've never faced anything like this. That thing could tear apart an entire star system. The combined Alliance fleet had gathered at the edge of the system, over 300 vessels of various sizes and capabilities. The largest assembly of non-Council ships in galactic history, yet still outnumbered by the Council defense fleet protecting the weapon. Any word from Dr. Wells? Vance asked her communications officer. His shuttle is docking now, Captain. Minutes later, Wells rushed onto the bridge, his face haggard from days without sleep. It's worse than we thought. The weapon isn't just Council technology, it's precursor tech they've modified. He connected his datapad to the main display. Complex schematics appeared, showing the weapon's internal structure. They've been studying precursor artifacts for millennia, learning how to weaponize them against their creator's descendants. General Reed, joining via hologram from another vessel, studied the schematics. Can we disable it? Possibly, Wells pointed to a section of the weapon. There's a resonance core that powers the quantum field generator. If we could disrupt it with precisely calibrated energy pulses, that would require getting past their defense fleet and the weapon's own protection systems, Vance noted. Ambassador Drake, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. We need a diversion. Something so threatening that they'll divert their forces. What could possibly? Wells began, then stopped as understanding dawned. The gene expression. You want to use the new abilities? Drake nodded grimly. It's time to show them exactly what they feared. The plan took shape quickly. While the main fleet engaged the Council Defense Forces, a smaller strike team would approach the weapon from an unexpected vector. But the key element was neither of these. Are you sure about this? General Reed asked Drake privately. The strain could kill you. Drake's expression remained resolute. 20 specialized humans linking their abilities through the Phantom Network, creating a technokinetic disruption large enough to disable their communication systems and sensor grids. Yes, it's dangerous. It's also our best chance. Aboard the command ship, 20 humans with the strongest precursor gene expressions gathered in a circular chamber, each connected to neural interfaces that linked them through the quantum-entangled Phantom Network. Remember, Drake told them as they prepared, focus on disruption, not destruction. We're better than they believe us to be. As the Alliance fleet moved into position, the 20 activated their link. Immediately, their consciousness expanded beyond physical limitations, connecting directly to the technological systems throughout the system. Across Council ships, systems began failing. Communication grids collapsed. Weapon targeting systems went offline. Protective shields flickered and died. Now, General Reed ordered. The Alliance fleet surged forward, moving through suddenly vulnerable Council defenses. Fighter squadrons led by human pilots with enhanced reflexes dodged energy beams and missile salvos that relied on now malfunctioning targeting systems. Captain, Vance directed the Retribution straight toward the heart of the Council formation. All hands prepare for close engagement. On the planet below, panic spread through the Council leadership as reports flooded in of inexplicable technological failures. Supreme Counselor Vextal raged at his subordinates. How is this possible? Find the source. A junior technician, voice trembling, replied. Sir, the disruptions match precursor energy signatures. They're using precursor abilities. Vextal's scaled face contorted with fury and fear. Accelerate the weapon's charging sequence. Target Earth immediately regardless of power levels. In space above, the battle raged. Alliance ships, though outnumbered, held significant advantages with Council systems compromised. The strike team, led by Tora and a squad of human specialists, approached the weapon using a captured Council shuttle. The disruption is working, Tora reported as they docked with the massive weapon. Internal security systems are offline. Inside the linked neural network, Drake felt the strain of maintaining the disruption. Blood trickled from his nose as he pushed his abilities to their limit. Several others in the circle showed similar signs of stress, but none broke concentration. The strike team fought their way through the weapon's interior, facing Council guards who had reverted to manual combat without their advanced systems. At the central chamber, they found the resonance core, a swirling vortex of energy suspended in a containment field. We need to recalibrate the field, Wells directed through their communication link. The formula is downloading to your devices now. As Tora's team worked frantically, alarms blared throughout the structure. They're bypassing the disruption, she warned, initiating manual firing sequence. Outside, the battle took a turn as Council reinforcements arrived, a second fleet emerging from hyperspace. The Alliance forces found themselves caught between two massive enemy formations. We can't hold this position much longer, General Reed reported, her flagship taking heavy damage. In the neural chamber, Drake made a decision. We need to push harder. The human physiology can't sustain this level of neural connection, warned the medical officer monitoring them. You could all suffer permanent brain damage or death. If that weapon fires, billions die, Drake responded. Push to maximum. The 20 linked humans channeled every ounce of their developing abilities. Throughout the system, Council technology didn't just malfunction, it began to turn against its users. Ships fired on friendly vessels, life support systems and Council bases initiated emergency protocols, locking down critical areas. Aboard the Council flagship, Supreme Counselor Vextal watched in horror as his own vessel's systems came under external control. The truth he had always feared was now undeniable. Humans were indeed developing precursor abilities, perhaps even beyond what the ancient race had possessed. This was never about protecting the galaxy, Captain Vance said as her ship closed on Vextal's position. It was about maintaining your control, keeping other species from reaching their potential. Vextal's ship, systems compromised, could neither flee nor fight effectively. The council leader activated a private communication channel to the Retribution. "You don't understand what you're becoming," he hissed. "The precursors nearly destroyed reality itself with their powers. We've protected the galaxy for 100,000 years. By committing genocide," Vance replied coldly, "by deciding which species deserve to exist. That ends today." At the weapons core, Tora's team completed their work just as security systems began to reactivate. "Containment field recalibrated," she reported. "The resonance is destabilizing." Energy arcs crawled across the weapon's surface as the ancient technology began to turn on itself. The strike team raced back to their shuttle, fighting through renewed resistance. In the neural chamber, Drake and the others reached the limit of human endurance. One by one, they began to collapse, blood streaming from eyes and ears as their brains reached breaking point. "Pull them out," the medical officer shouted. "They're dying." Across the battlefield, the effects of their combined abilities began to fade. Council systems gradually came back online. But it had been enough. The weapons core was destabilizing beyond recovery, and the Council fleet had taken massive losses. Tora's shuttle barely escaped the weapon as the first explosions rippled through its structure. The massive construct built to destroy worlds tore itself apart in a spectacular chain reaction. As emergency medical teams worked to save Drake and the others, Counselor Wraitha's voice came through on all Alliance channels. "This is Counselor Wraitha of the Galactic Council. I speak for myself and 3 other council members who seek immediate ceasefire and negotiation." General Reed, cautious, responded, "Your colleagues attempted to deploy a planet killer against Earth. Why should we trust any council member now?" "Because we've seen the truth," Wraitha answered. "The evidence Dr. Wells discovered, the archives Vextal tried to destroy, the 3 council races who orchestrated genocide across millennia. Their actions were never authorized by the full council." Captain Vance, watching Supreme Counselor Vextal's damaged flagship attempt to retreat, had to make a swift decision. "Weapons lock on the council flagship," she ordered. "Prepare to fire." The Retribution's weapons powered up, targeting systems locked on Vextal's vessel. In that moment, humanity's declaration of no more mercy was put to its greatest test. What they decided next would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but the shape of galactic civilization for millennia to come. 1 year after the Battle of the Ancestral World, Ambassador Elias Drake stood once more in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council. Unlike his previous appearance, he wasn't alone. Representatives from 27 Alliance species stood with him, including Tora of the Vishiri and delegates from worlds only recently freed from Council oppression. The chamber itself had changed. Gone were the elevated thrones that had once separated the 7 Supreme Counselors from the rest of the galaxy. In their place stood a circular table of equals, 4 seats filled by the council members who had broken with their colleagues, 3 empty as stark reminders of those who had orchestrated millennia of genocide. Counselor Wraitha, now serving as interim coordinator, addressed the assembly. 1 year ago, the foundations of our civilization were shaken. Truths long buried came to light. Actions indefensible by any moral standard were exposed. Her gaze moved to Drake. Humanity showed us 2 paths that day. The path of retribution, which none could have blamed them for taking, and the path of justice. Captain Vance, seated beside Drake, remembered that pivotal moment when the Retribution's weapons had been locked on Vextal's crippled flagship. The order to fire had been on her lips. The council leader responsible for attempting to destroy Earth had been at her mercy. Instead, she had ordered his arrest. "We are not executioners," she had declared. "He will stand trial for genocide. The galaxy will know what he has done." Now, a year later, that trial had concluded. Vextal and the other 2 counselors had been found guilty of orchestrating the extinctions of 17 species over thousands of years. Their sentence, permanent exile to a habitable but isolated world, stripped of all technology, the mercy they had never shown others. Dr. Wells stepped forward to present his findings to the assembly. Once hidden in restricted archives, the full history of the Council's dark operations now became part of the public record. The precursors were not the threat they were portrayed as, he explained, displaying ancient records recovered from hidden vaults. They were simply the first species to achieve what we now call emergence, the expression of latent genetic abilities that allowed direct neural interface with technology and, in some cases, matter itself. Holographic images showed the spread of precursor civilization across the ancient galaxy, peaceful, advanced, and dedicated to helping other species reach their potential. The three council races who destroyed them feared losing control, Wells continued. They feared a galaxy where all species could reach equality, so they engineered the precursor extinction and spent the next 100,000 years eliminating any species that carried similar genetic potential. General Reed, who had overseen the Alliance military during the past year's transition, added, "They nearly succeeded in adding humanity to that list." The Dravari attack on our colonies was merely the final stage of a plan set in motion when our species first appeared. Drake addressed the assembly next. "Today we formalize what began in conflict, not a human empire, not even an alliance to oppose the Council. Instead, a new galactic covenant, where all spacefaring species have equal voice and equal protection." The past year had been difficult. Humanity had struggled with their emerging abilities, some developing powerful technokinetic talents, others showing no change at all. Drake himself still suffered neurological damage from the battle, requiring a mobility assist device to walk. Of the 20 who had linked minds to save Earth, 7 had died. The others, like Drake, carried permanent scars, yet none expressed regret for their sacrifice. "The new covenant brings 3 fundamental principles," Drake continued. "First, the right of all sentient species to exist without threat of extinction. Second, the right to develop according to their own path without interference. And third, accountability for those who would violate these principles." He paused, meeting the eyes of representatives throughout the chamber. This third principle is where humanity's declaration continues to stand. No more mercy for those who commit genocide. No more mercy for those who would decide which species deserve to exist. No more mercy for oppressors. Councillor Ratha stood. "On behalf of the Reformed Council, we accept these principles and our responsibility for the crimes committed in our name." The ratification process took hours, as each representative registered their species' commitment to the new covenant. When completed, thousands of worlds stood united in a new galactic order, one built on justice rather than domination. Later, on the observation deck of the diplomatic station orbiting the Covenant's new headquarters world, Drake watched the celebration unfold across 100 vessels. Captain Vance joined him, carrying 2 glasses. "To those who couldn't see this day," she said, offering him one. Drake accepted it with his good hand. "Do you ever regret your decision? Not firing on Vextel when you had the chance?" Vance considered this. Sometimes. He deserved worse than exile. But executing him would have made us what they feared, beings who decide who lives and dies. "A fine line between justice and vengeance," Drake noted. "One worth maintaining," she replied. "Especially now." Reports from across human space showed more children being born with active precursor genes. Other Alliance species were beginning to show similar developments, an evolutionary leap accelerated by crisis, just as the Council had feared. "What do you think happens next?" Vance asked, watching distant ships move through the starfield. "Now that humans and others are developing these abilities?" Drake shrugged. "That's the beauty of it. For the first time in 100,000 years, evolution can take its natural course. Species can reach their potential without fear of extinction." Dr. Wells and Tora joined them on the observation deck. The xenoarchaeologist had spent the past year working with Alliance scientists to understand the full potential of precursor genetics. Tora had become the first Vishiri representative to the new Covenant Council. "The gene expression is stabilizing," Wells reported. "Future generations will develop abilities naturally without the trauma that triggered our accelerated change." "And the dangers Vextal warned of?" Drake asked. "Could we actually threaten reality itself, as he claimed?" Wells smiled slightly. "I believe what truly terrified him wasn't our potential for destruction, but our potential for creation. The precursor records show they were close to understanding the fundamental structure of reality, not to destroy it, but to enhance it." Tora's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of optimism among her people. "My species has a saying, the path of fear leads to darkness. The path of hope leads to stars. On a nearby view screen, the trial records played again, documentary evidence of the Council's crimes being broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Not as propaganda, but as truth, a reminder of what happens when fear drives civilizations. General Reed joined the gathering, reviewing force deployment reports on her neural interface. Despite the peace, the Alliance maintained vigilance. Old habits die hard among some former Council worlds, she noted. 3 separate attempts to build weapons of mass destruction identified and stopped this month alone. And each one met with the same response, Drake said. Swift intervention, public trials, consequences. The policy had proven effective. Former Council military leaders quickly learned that the Alliance's declaration of no more mercy didn't mean cruelty, it meant certainty. Actions that violated the Covenant met with inevitable justice. As stars wheeled overhead, Drake reflected on the journey from humanity's darkest hour to this moment of possibility. The attempted genocide had nearly destroyed his species. Instead, it had awakened something within them, not just new abilities, but a fierce determination that the galaxy would never again allow such atrocities. To the future, he said, raising his glass. To justice, added Vance. To evolution, Wells contributed. Tora completed the toast with the words that had become the Covenant's unofficial motto. And to mercy where deserved, but no mercy for oppressors. Across the galaxy, thousands of worlds embraced a new era, one where extinction was no longer a tool of policy, where potential was celebrated rather than feared, and where humanity's declaration had become a promise to all sentient beings. Never again would genocide go unpunished. Never again would any species face extinction for being what they were meant to become. The message that had begun as a threat, no more mercy, had transformed into something greater, a commitment to justice that would echo through the stars for generations to come.